Hi everybody. This is a short video about how you can start drafting your body paragraphs. This document is in the lessons folder, and I just wanted to take you through it and give you an example of what it can look like to draft a body paragraph. First of all, we're starting with body paragraphs rather than the introduction because sometimes it's really hard to write your introduction first. A lot of times you start writing, you sit down, you really don't know what to say, and you feel really stuck because you don't know how to introduce something that you haven't written. So sometimes it's a good idea to start from the middle of your essay rather than start from the beginning. But even if you're doing that, it is a good idea to have some idea of where you're going. So in this document, we have the assignment question, which is basically who gets to be lucky. You should look back at the whole assignment. Don't just go with this. Make sure you understand the whole assignment. But basically the question is who gets to be lucky? And I'm thinking about an answer. I'm thinking lucky means something like having some kind of privilege. It might also have to do with our identity. So this is my working thesis. It's not yet really a full thesis. I haven't figured out my thesis yet, but it's an answer to the question and it's going in the right direction. And what I'm doing here is taking this idea of lucky from Amy Hunter and this idea of privilege from the Alan Johnson article and this idea of identity from Tatum. And I'm going to figure out how those things go together. So now I'm going to start writing my body paragraphs. So a body paragraph is going to have like an idea, a quote, and a discussion. There's lots of different ways to do body paragraphs. As you grow as a writer, you're going to find that you need body paragraphs to do different things depending on what you're trying to say. But right now we're going with just this very flexible, basic approach of an idea, a quote, and a discussion. That idea is sometimes called a topic sentence, and that's what I have here. A topic sentence is usually the first paragraph, the first sentence of your paragraph, and it tells your reader what's coming. It tells your reader what the whole paragraph is about. So I have this idea here that the idea of white identification means that white people tend to be seen as normal. People who are not white are often seen as other. And if you've read the Tatum article and read the Johnson article, you can see that that's where I'm getting that idea from. And then I have a quote here from Johnson. Oh, it should say Johnson, right? Okay, I might take that out later, but let's see. The quote that says, white identification means that the culture defines white people as a standard for human beings in general. People of color, for example, are routinely identified as non-white, a term that doesn't tell us what they are, but what they are not. And then I have a Tatum quote that says, similarly, Tatum writes that's just me introducing it. The quote says, the parts of our identity that do capture our attention are those that other people notice and they reflect back to us. Probably should be they. The aspect of identity that is the target of others' attention and subsequently of our own is often that which sets us apart as exceptional or other in their eyes. So I was already doing a little writing there because these quotes are from my connections chart. So I've already been thinking about these quotes together because I had them in my connections chart and I have an idea of what's going on. So now I'm just going to start like putting some ideas around them. I'm not worried a whole lot about getting my ideas perfectly right. I'm not worried about getting my words perfectly right or my grammar perfectly right. This is the first time I'm trying to get ideas down. So I'm just going to like write stuff in here. So let's see. The idea of white identification means that white people tend to be seen as normal. People who are not white are often seen as other. So I'm just going to say like, as Alan Johnson writes, and there I am introducing my quote. Okay, then we have this quote, white identification means that the culture defines white people as a standard for human beings. People of color, for example, are routinely identified as non-white, a term that doesn't tell us what they are, but what they are not. So I'm going to write about that a little bit. I'm going to say, in other words, white is seen as normal, and people who are not white, people who are Black or Hispanic, Asian, are seen as something other than normal. Being something other than normal is usually not good. In fact, when we see people as not fitting in as white, also seen as less than white. Right, so I might say something like, this is something that may be changing, but historically, white people were seen as better. This meant that if you didn't fit in with that standard, you might not get the same opportunities as white people. Now, I'm going to tell you, like, I've been thinking about this for a while. It took me a couple of tries to make this video, so this is not the first time I'm sitting down and writing. So this might be coming out a little quicker for me than it would for you because, one, I'm an experienced writer, and two, I've been thinking about this for a long time. So don't worry if when you're writing, it doesn't come out even this quickly. And though what's coming out here is pretty messy because writing is pretty messy. Okay, so I have this idea that if you didn't fit in with the standard, you might not get the same opportunities as white people. And I want to get a little more detail there, an example. And I've been watching this show on Netflix called Hollywood. And it's like Hollywood in like the 1950s. And Black people weren't given a lot of opportunities and Asian people weren't given a lot of opportunities. So I have that on my mind. So I'm just going to say, for example, if you direct a movie, we might say Black director. That sentence is definitely going to have to change, but identify someone as a white director. We often hear about the first Asian person to do something, or the first Latina to be a judge or something. See, this is going to need some cleaning up. What we are seeing is that people who are not white often have historically not been given the same opportunities as white people. They have often not been lucky. Okay, so what I did here is I took this idea of like not fitting in with that white standard and took it back to this idea of lucky. Now I also have the idea of other here, and so I feel like that the Tatum code is not going to fit in. I'm going to need a different paragraph for that. So I'm going to go ahead and work on that paragraph, and you can see I have some stuff here that I already put in there. So I started a new paragraph here. Similarly, Tatum writes that, that should have a comma. The parts of our identity that do capture our attention are those that other people notice and they reflect back to us. The aspect of identity that is a target of others' attention and subsequently of our own often is that which sets us apart as exceptional or other in their eyes. I really like that idea of other. That's a big, important idea. When someone is viewed as other, they are seen as being outside the norm and often inferior. For example, women athletes are often thought of as exceptions rather than the norm. Worse, women athletes are seen as not just exceptions, but not as good. The male way of playing a sport might become the norm, and the way women play is seen as other or inferior. This means that women might not get the same opportunities as men. They might not be lucky. So I see where I'm like developing some ideas around this notion of lucky. So there's a couple of body paragraphs coming into shape. They still need a lot of work, but I hope that gives you an idea of what this process might look like. Notice that I'm starting with a quote and building my ideas around it. I'm not writing a paragraph and then putting the quote in. That doesn't work well. Make sure you start with your quote, you start with your ideas, you start with the things you've been thinking about, and then pull it all together. I hope this helps. Please let me know if you have any questions.